listening to the Metal Command Podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. Today, I am here to talk about two things with everybody, and that will be the new Sebastian Bach album called Child Within the Man, and of course, because Eric Gronwall has left Skid Row, and currently they have an interim vocalist in Lizzie Hale, finishing up the tour for Skid Row. The rumor mill is out, Sebastian Bach, and, of course, the possible Skid Row reunion. We've heard about this for years now, for well over a decade, maybe even longer. Will Sebastian Bach ever rejoin Skid Row? So I'll be talking about that entire situation, and I'm also going to be talking about the album. And right now, let's talk about this album. This album is phenomenal. Of course, when I ended up getting it shipped to me, the CD case cracked on it, but nevertheless, this is a great record. First album he has put out in 10 years. The last album that came out was Give 'Em Hell back in 2014. And it is the fourth full-length album, solo album, that Sebastian Bach has put out. Now, he did have an EP in the late 90s called Bring 'Em Back Alive, which did have a lot of Skid Row classics recorded live, as well as some original music on that EP as well. But this is actually technically the fourth full-length album. And Sebastian Bach, to me, his solo stuff has been nothing short of awesome, with pretty much every release that has come out. You had Angel Down, I believe, that came out back in 2007. And, when that first came out, I was excited for it. Roy Z had a lot to do with that album. And, of course, he had Axl Rose as a guest on it. Then you had the album Kicking and Screaming, which up until this album came out, in my opinion, was his best solo album up to that point. And then Give 'Em Hell, which I didn't like as much as Kicking and Screaming, but it was still very solid and a good release. And then you have this record, which really, I knew the album would be pretty good from the single that had come out, which called What Do I Got to Lose. I thought that single was very good. I had high hopes and expectations for this album, and definitely it delivered. And the one thing I like about it is from start to finish, this album is great, start to finish. There's no filler tracks on it. All of these songs I think are very well written. And again, aside from Sebastian Bach and his voice sounding amazing on this record, the songwriting is really the biggest thing for me as far as how much I like it. Bach's going to sound good, at least in my opinion he does. It's a matter of whether the songs are good or not, and it definitely does deliver the goods on those songs. So when I look at his solo career and I look at the albums, again, all four full-length albums are great. If I kind of had to rank them, I would probably have this one be number one. Then you'd have Kicking and Screaming number two. And I'm talking about the full-length albums. Number three would be Angel Down, and I think Give 'Em Hell would be number four. But all four of them are very, very good. John 5 plays a solo on the song Freedom, which is the second track on this album. But overall, from the songwriting to the production to the guitar work, to everybody playing on this album is definitely just a 10 out of 10 for me from start to finish. It really is. You have the very first song, Everybody Bleeds, for example, just totally just in your face, kick-ass, heavy metal, and it just sounds, Sebastian Bach sounds great. Everything about this record sounds great. But it has some really, really good stuff on it. Hard Darkness is kind of an interesting, more of a darker song on the record. You have the song F You, which I think is great. Crucify Me. To Live Again, it's kind of a little bit of a slower song, but all of these tracks I think are great. And if you've liked Sebastian Bach's other solo releases, or you liked him in Skid Row, I think you should definitely pick this album out and pick this album up and check it out. Because it's definitely worth doing so. So with that said, I give this album a 10 out of 10. Highly recommended. Definitely an album of the year candidate. So now let's get to the possible Skid Row reunion. So to get everybody, for those of you living under a rock and don't know, Eric Gronwall, who was the singer on the last Skid Row album, he decided to call it quits. due to, unfortunately, he has, survived leukemia and survived cancer. And going on the road has been very difficult for him on his recovery. So he quit the band on good terms. The band has, put a press release out talking about putting out a live album with him singing. And in the meantime, they have Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm filling in as a vocalist. And there have been some videos released with her singing. I think she sounds pretty good on some of these songs. But before I get into that whole situation, let me talk about my feelings on wanting Sebastian Bach to come back to Skid Row and have a reunion. Now, there have been a lot of interviews where he's talked about this, how the fans deserve it, and how it could possibly happen. Again, I don't have any inside information. I don't know anything about the inner workings of that whole situation. Obviously, the guys in Skid Row have, kind of said that it was possible, but it wouldn't, and that they wouldn't take him back. There's been tons. There's so much information you can go out. If you just Google it, you can find a lot of the quotes and a lot of the interviews. But here's my thing, folks. I think it's about time this guy rejoins that band, even if it's for just a tour. Just to see him on stage with those guys again, performing those songs would be great. Would an album be great? Absolutely. But just a tour. It's been 28 years. Because I believe in 1996 was when he was fired or he quit. There's been a whole bunch of controversy when it comes to that story, so I'm not going to get into it. But obviously, parting ways with the band in 1996, and it's been 28 years. A lot of people want to see this happen, folks. I'm one of them. Now, there's a lot of Sebastian Bach haters out there saying, oh, he sucks live, he's not good. I don't know what you guys are listening to. I'm sure there are some nights where he may have had an off night, but when I've seen him live, he sounded great. And and it wasn't that long ago when I saw him sing live. Every singer has a bad night, folks. They go and take one performance or two and think, oh my God, this guy sounds terrible. Well, I'll be honest with you. I've seen him on some great nights, and he sounded great, obviously. So there is that segment of people who are haters. And the thing is this. I think Skid Row has lacked big time since he left. I would take any of Sebastian Bach's solo stuff right now over anything Skid Row has done without him. Honestly, because the Skid Row albums without him have been very, very hit or miss. And same with the singers that have replaced him. The first singer, for example, Johnny Solinger, I thought he's a pretty good vocalist, but he definitely wasn't on Sebastian Bach's level at all. You go to the albums he sang on, the album Thick Skin, I thought was, very underwhelming. Revolutions Per Minute was actually very good. Then you had, the couple of the EPs, obviously they came out, and you had other singers in the band, like the guy from Dragon Force, who I thought was a terrible fit. You had Tony Harnell, who I thought really wasn't a great fit. Eric Gronwall, by far, in my opinion, is the best replacement vocalist they have had. And he was very good. And the album, The Gang's All Here, was actually very, very good. It was a very good record. It's probably the best album they've put out since Sebastian Bach was out of the band. But let's be real here, folks. I want to see this guy on stage with that band again. And I'm talking about Sebastian Bach singing stuff off Slave to the Grind, singing the stuff off of the first album, maybe throwing in a couple songs from Subhuman Race. It would be a great thing to see. It really would be amazing. And for those of you not involved in the music industry, a lot of negotiations happen. A lot of things have to happen to make this work. And I'm hoping it can work. Obviously, he's my first choice to, bring back the Skid Row. Now, there's a segment of people that want Lizzie Hale to be the permanent replacement and say, screw it, we don't want Sebastian back. There are those folks that want that. I watched the video with Lizzie Hale singing with the band live. Because there's some YouTube content out there. There are some videos out there of her singing. And, I understand where some of you are coming from. Some of you are saying, this woman is a great vocalist. And there's no denying that she is. And a lot of people are out there saying she's a great fit. Just keep her in the band. I get where you're coming from. And she is a pretty good vocalist. And honestly, she does a pretty solid job in the songs. I don't think she's as good as Eric Gronwall was for the band, but she does a pretty solid job on the songs. I'm going to say, she's probably one of the better singers they've had. But she's not Sebastian Bach. And when I say that, I'm saying that from the standpoint as Sebastian Bach just fits the band better. His voice was originally meant for those songs. And I could kind of get the guys, like Lizzie Hale joined Skid Row. I wouldn't be upset about it. I'd probably buy the album whenever they would release one. But she's not Sebastian Bach, folks. That's the thing. She may be a phenomenal vocalist. She may have been. She may be a very successful singer and vocalist. But she's not Sebastian Bach. That's kind of how I look at that situation. Now, if they don't have a reunion with Sebastian Bach, would I be upset if she joined the band? No. But I want that reunion to happen. I really hope it actually does. Screw the haters. Bring the guy back in. Hopefully you guys can find some way to make it work. And, from some of the interviews, he's talking about maybe it will work. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen. Who knows? Right now, up until this point, it hasn't, and I'm kind of of the viewpoint that it's a sin if it doesn't, because truthfully, I believe that you got to do it now or never. At this point, people are getting older. Time is limited on this planet. It really is. So, anyhow, that's how I view it. I really want to see Sebastian Bach back in the band. And again, his new solo album is phenomenal. So check it out. Thanks for watching. Stay metal.